I'm afraid you now have me for the rest of the afternoon, as unfortunately Tommy Davis, who was going to moderate this panel, has had to leave for his flight. So I am stepping into the breach to organise this panel, and then after that I will be interviewing Kaiser, who I see is already waiting. I would like to ask Simjay, Uygar and Javit to come up to the stage, please. Right, good afternoon, everybody. If I may, I'm not terribly experienced in AI, and I had a very short notice to moderate this panel, but I understand my panelists have already prepared the whole session, so I just have to sit here and smile at you all while you listen to the panelists. Perhaps I could start with, just while we sort out this. I was wondering, perhaps first, please could you all introduce yourselves, starting with Simjay, and then we will start. And I understand that you know we're going to talk first of all about the context of AI. So Simjay, please introduce yourself, and after the introductions we will start talking.
Yeah, okay. Simge Alpargun, I'm joining from IBM Turkey. My role in IBM covers services sales, and under services we talk about digital transformation, design thinking based UX and customer experience innovations, and blockchain and AI. And today I will try to explain my views and IBM's corporate views on what artificial intelligence is.
Okay, this is Uygar Doyran. I lead the GE Digital business in Turkey, and GE Digital is actually the digital transformation arm of GE. Our main focus is on industrial. As you know, GE is an industrial company, and as GE Digital, we focus on industrial Internet of Things, AI, and all the other technologies to define the new generation of industry.
So this is Javit Yantaç. I work for Microsoft Middle East and Africa office, and I lead a commercial software engineering team in Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and South Africa. So the team that we are a part of is responsible for creating high-scale and high-impact stories and technical development experiences around artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, high-scale computing, etc.
Right, so perhaps you would like to explain sort of what AI really is and what it means. I think many people have a sense but not necessarily a deep understanding. I do not know which of you is going to start.
That's me. Okay, I'll do my best. At IBM, we don't call AI artificial intelligence, but we use the term augmented intelligence. The distinction between the two is actually clear, but just to remind you, human intelligence has some very fundamental features that we cannot replicate in machines in a practical or possible way in the short to medium term, which are like consciousness, ethics, values, and taking responsibility of the actions. However, there are some things that machines can do a lot better, faster, and cheaper than humans, and that's where we need to speak about data. In the discussion before this panel, how the data grows and what new types of data we are faced to process were explained very detailed, so I won't repeat that. But we are actually living in a world where we interact with services which have embedded AI. I'm not talking about only chatbots or virtual agents, self-driving cars and things like that, but think about the offers your bank has been doing to you for years. They know what kind of financial products you may be interested in, and that's why they offer those products to you. Or your insurer knows what kind of risky behaviors you may be involved in, and that's how they adjust your premiums. Spotify knows what type of music you like, and that's why you listen to those music when you shuffle. But today, even these companies face the challenge of not being good enough in processing the data. But machines can do that perfectly. However, once machine extracts that data, processes, analyzes, and creates some insights, we still need humans to go over those and to take the final decision and arrive at the conclusion. So it's actually a combination of the two. So it's not man versus machine, but it's man and machine. That's why we call this augmented intelligence. That's why we believe humans will be working with machines in a more efficient and effective way in the future. At IBM, we are building services for companies to use AI. And these services differ in nature. Some services are about text, some are about conversation, speech, voice, some are about image, visual, motion, different types of services. What we want is that the companies take those services and use them to give better experience or products to their customers or to improve their internal operations. However, we have some strict rules while developing those services, and I think these are critical in our journey in AI as a humankind. So we are very sensitive about the purpose of that service. The intent behind that service is clearly explained. We know it, the company knows it, the public knows it. Second, the data. You cannot think of AI independently of the data that's fed into that. So whatever data is going into that service is clear, identified, sources are known, and also trustworthy, and kept securely. We don't own the data, the company owns the data, but we don't also mix data from different companies to arrive at a super conclusion. And the third one is about skills. AI needs training. It can learn, but it has to be given the basic training initially. Not everyone can do that, so it has to be the certified professionals or credit-worthy institutions, those involved in training the AI, so that we know the learning will not cause any bad surprises for us.
And do you have any comments to make on
Yeah, so,
interpretation? Do you agree?
you know, on top of Simge's comments, I think what you also mentioned is AI is no more a bounded entity. And also, Ferruh was in the previous panel talking about why it's time for AI now. So one of the primary things is the parallel and cheap computational power. So we no longer have a room of computers you know, trying to solve a problem for us. Now we have the whole internet with billions of people contributing to it, and which has a huge processing power. On top of that, we also have a lot of data. So big data right now internet is being fed by not only the humans but also machines, you know, with the Internet of Things as well. And on top of this, we have smarter algorithms. Of course, these algorithms have been theoretically possible for many years, but in the recent years there had been also the new progress on the deep learning algorithms as well. So now AI is a combined entity where all these quintillions of transistors are working together, people contributing to it, and providing feedbacks as well. This is the important part of that. And making it smarter and smarter. So the internet is becoming an AI engine, so with the many chips inside. On top of it, many companies are also investing on AI. So it's IBM, Microsoft, GE, Google, all of them have been acquiring new companies that are especially focusing on AI. And the investments are growing year over year. Every year in the last 4 years, the investments have been growing 70% year over year on AI for these companies. Today, it's around $30 billion per year. which is quite a big thing. So AI is in the agenda of every company and also in the startups. Why AI is in the agenda of startups? Think of it about 3 generations ago. So we were building washing machines and we were getting, electricity from the grid and making it work. We were building hair dryers, electrifying them and making them work. Now, the future is take something, whatever it is. It may be your health problem, it may be your financial account, it may be whatever, and cognify it. Work with the big internet, work with the big net that has a lot of artificial intelligence in it, and make it smarter. So making the dumb things smarter will be the future. So when we talk about this, of course, everyone talks about, AI, is it a threat or not? This would be a topic of discussion all the time. But how I see AI is like a nerd in your company. So, we have these nerds in our companies, right? So I was a nerd before, I was doing software development, and we really like those nerds. They are doing something very well in the most smart way, and you can always rely on them. But on the other hand, they cannot manage the company. They cannot invent all the new things. They cannot define the strategy. So in the future, AI, 99% of that, from my point of view, will be special purposed, specialized specialized systems that we can always rely on. So today, you can, or in near future, you would be able to rely on a driverless car. But that driverless car will not be able to do all of your, day-to-day work. It will be just a car. You can rely on, let's say, an image recognition engine, which has AI inside that, looks at scans the a CT scan and finds out the cancer cells and helps you to do better diagnosis. But it cannot do everything that a doctor would do. So, like those nerds that are always around us, that we rely on them, that we work together with them, as Simge said, it won't be like man against machine, it would be man with the machine. So just a final thing, an example I would like to give is these, chess games. Always, we talked about them in giving examples of AIs. So now there are freestyle chess games where the big chess players are actually relying on AI to give them some guidance, some feedbacks about the next move. You may rely on that, or you may choose to override it, like the GPS in your car. You can rely on the GPS, but you may choose to override it. So I think the strongest point of mankind will be there, and which is actually inventing new things, generating new things, and then all those new things will be cognified, will be made smarter with AI, and maybe becoming repetitive tasks, very ubiquitous things that we do, and then we will just go on and invent new things again and again.
Thank you. Javed, have you got some practical examples of best practice in AI?
Absolutely. So when we talk about AI, we have this tendency to talk about a futuristic capability. So AI immediately reminds us about the future, the future-related movies, dystopic movies, etc., that we always see. But then again, AI is here, as AI is applicable and applied in business, in financial services, in healthcare, in services industry, production industry, in various areas. So I want to give you a perspective of a couple of different companies that I've seen in the last 2 years that apply AI in their businesses. The first example is from South Africa. Recently, we were involved in a company, we were working with a company, an insurance company, that wanted to streamline their claims processing, the claims processing line. So what they figured out was that when a car crashes on any other car, the drivers take a picture and then they send it to the insurance company, and the insurance company generally doesn't take this for granted, and they send additional agents to make sure that those claims are real, valid, and properly taken claims. So there is a cost of sending someone, practically someone, from one location, the insurance company's headquarters, to where that accident occurred. If this is a car accident, this might not be a hugely expensive process, but if it's any typical claims processing on healthcare, on house damages, etc., then the whole price tag of that claims processing is extremely expensive. So the company called Outsurance recently decided to process everything based on artificial intelligence. So the moment you take a picture, and then the moment you send it to this insurance company for claims processing, they analyze the picture and try to see if that particular picture has any fraud in it, any fraudulent component in it. They don't rely on one picture, but they rely on a series of different pictures that make sure that the picture that you take is not a single picture and is not readily usable for fraudulent purposes. By using this, by using artificial intelligence to process that data, that picture, and the accident, the picture of the accident on that specific picture, they were able to decrease their claims processing costs significantly. They realized that they can actually process a larger amount of pictures in a much smaller amount of time with higher accuracy rates of catching up fraudulent cases. So they were able to reduce their costs immensely. The second case that I am going to talk about comes from Turkey, and this is coming from a company called Kariyer.net. So for those of you who reside in Turkey, Kariyer.net is a company that collects CVs and resumes. So they're kind of like the monster.com of Turkey, in that they have the largest collection of CVs and resumes and job applications in Turkey. Over a period of like almost close to 20 years, they have collected such a big amount of CVs and resumes and applications that they're now able to predict what kind of jobs are better matches for you. And not just for the applicants, but also for the companies that really provide job searches or CV searches. They can now predict which CVs are a better fit for you as a company. And to be able to do this, these two companies actually apply two different ways of dealing with AI. The first company, Outsurance, did not rely on data scientists. They did not employ a team of data scientists. They mainly relied on the cognitive capabilities of our platform, which is pretty much similar to what IBM or Google or Amazon does in many ways. So they relied on the cognitive capabilities of this cloud platform, and they embedded that application to their already built Java-based application. So think of it, any particular insurance company in your life, or think of any particular banking application that you might want to feed with AI. In certain cases, you don't have to have artificial intelligence experts. You can rely on your typical developers that can simply use APIs, cognitive services APIs, to be able to tap into the power of AI. The second team, Kariyer.net, employed a different approach, and they actually employed a series of data scientists. So they actually built their own machine learning models, and they actually developed and deployed these machine learning models on our platform, on the cloud platform. And on this platform, they developed their own internal applications. And then what they did, interestingly, was not to use the whole learning internally, but they pretty much outsourced their learnings through research papers and and a couple of other different innovative ways. So in AI, in the world of AI and machine learning, I think the beauty of maybe 2010s, maybe 2020s, the era that we're in, is now also dependent on the use of open source significantly. So in that regard, what we are doing with our customers, with our partners, with our competitors is the ability to open source pretty much everything, every capability to process data, every new algorithm that we're able to develop and use, we pretty much outsource it as much as possible. As much as possible when the service underlying it is applicable. Then comes the third aspect. Every example that I've given so far is dependent on an already existing huge data center that exists in Microsoft's or IBM's or Amazon's realms. But then the question is, in an automated car, for instance, are we always connected to that cloud? Are we always reliant on a cloud service provider like Microsoft Azure that is able to provide that constant stream of intelligence to you? In the last several years, we've been seeing the emergence of AI on edge, which means that actually the computing capabilities that we have in our cars, the computing capabilities that we have in our phones, the computing capabilities that we have on our smart glasses like HoloLens, are now able to deploy and use a significant amount of artificial intelligence without the need of constantly being connected to the cloud. So now, in the year 2017 and 18, we're able to learn from what we've developed on the cloud and now use it on the edge. So in the next few years, I think the main development that we're going to see in the world of IoT, in the world of smart cars, in the world of smart bikes and smart houses, etc., is that not everything is going to be connected all the time to the cloud. And most of that intelligent guessing, intelligent forecasting, intelligent processing, cognitive capabilities will reside on the edge, which will make life more full of AI in a ubiquitous manner. So that's my take on the practical aspect.
I'd just like to ask the audience, does anyone feel that this is going too far too quickly? Hands up. Is anyone interested in whether AI is moving too quickly and can we cope with it? Or are you all happy? Hands up if you're happy with the progress. Oh, yeah, most people are happy, yeah, but not everybody. Okay, so there's certainly some, no doubt, some communication to go on. So, Ugya, do you have any examples of practice, maybe quickly, and then we'll move on to sort of how AI is being applied?
Yes, sure. Let me give you an example from our industry. So, as you know, GE is mainly an industrial company. Our primary areas are power, aviation, manufacturing, healthcare. For example, in energy, in gas turbines, let's say. So how do we leverage AI is like this. You may have a big power plant with $1 million of equipment that's residing, let's say, 2,000 miles away from here. So now with AI, we are able to build a digital twin of that power plant. Especially with the digital twins, you digitally see what's going on in your system and make simulations not only about the current situation but also do predictions for the future. Let's say there is a warning in your power plant and the digital twin captures a situation that, if you run the power plant like this, in the next 3 days it will be down. So in that case, with all the different data coming from the sensors and with all the smartness behind that, the AI may also give you guidance about, well, instead of running the power plant in this speed and in this temperature, let's build a little bit less electricity, let's generate a little bit less electricity and make it reliable for the next 15 days. because in the next 10 days or 15 days, you have a planned maintenance where you can maintain the plant and you won't have any loss. So this directly affects your overall costs, customer satisfaction, and revenue, everything. So this is only a simple, only one use case where we are using digital twins in power plant. But consider it around, having digital twins of locomotives, airplanes, a hospital, healthcare equipment, your company, etc. And having simulations and all these things running in the background to give you better predictions. So that's the future that we are getting to.
And Simjay, what views do you have on application?
Yeah, sure. So let me give you an example on how AI is used to interact with the natural language. For instance, it was mentioned before, we bought a company in the US called Promontory. Promontory is the leading risk advisory company in the world. And Promontory advisors go and advise to banks and other financial institutions on how to translate the coming regulations and how to prepare themselves for the new regulations. Research shows that regulation-related costs have been increasing a lot since the crisis of 2008-2009. And banks and other financial institutions are spending big amounts of money to comply with the new regulations. What they do is, once they learn that there's a change or there's a completely new regulation, they start preparations internally. And they have tons of people working on this. They're trying to understand the regulation, what it will affect in the bank in terms of their operational procedures, how people work, their risk and control mechanisms and stuff like that. So this is what people do today. But the regulations are in kind of a puzzle. So there are some upper regulations, but there are some laws, there are some, commercial, other, implications. And you have to be very careful that if you move one piece, then somewhere a connection is broken and you are, risking to have a sentence. So what we did with Promontory is we used our AI platform called Watson, and Promontory trained Watson in US financial institutions regulations. If we give now a change in a regulation, what Watson can do is it can just, as a train of actions, it can show us, okay, this change will affect this sentence of this procedure, this control you apply in your call center, this paragraph in your customer contracts, blah, blah, blah. Everything that will be affected in the bank can be identified by help of Watson, because it processes the existing regulations, it can understand the new change, it can link the connections, and it can show us where to take action. But then, again, it is the domain expert's responsibility whether to apply those suggestions or not. So this is a very practical example, and we believe this mechanism can be applied to other industries like education, healthcare. We're working in a similar project for cybersecurity, for instance, for fraud, for risk analytics. If we train AI on existing foundations, it can process much larger amounts of data in shorter durations than we can do, and also much different types of data. And then it can give us suggestions, and it's again our call whether to apply it or not.
Thank you. And Javed, any words of wisdom on application from you?
Sure. So I guess it all boils down to one thing. It's not a question of what we are going to be doing or if we are going to be doing, but it's a question of when we're going to be applying AI and machine learning in our companies. Financial services industry is by no means an exception to this. We've started seeing the application of artificial intelligence in customer-related and customer communication-based chatbots. We've seen the emergence of robo-advisory services in financial services. We've started to see the emergence of deeper knowledge bases and the ability to search the knowledge bases in a much more efficient way. So in the financial services industry, AI and machine learning is already there to provide HQs, the headquarters of banks, immense power of processing and cost cutting. So now, in the next 5 to 10 years, I guess what we are going to be seeing is the emergence of AI in different alternative channels that we're now using, not just the branches, but also any different way that you interact with the bank is going to be using AI in one way, shape, or form.
Thank you. Does the audience have any questions for our panelists? Yes, Matthew. I think if you just wait 1 minute, there's a mic coming.
Hi, I'm Matt Gamzer. I work for the IFC and I run the SME Finance Forum. And I'm a big fan of the potential of AI and machine learning. But, and this is for IBM, you know, one of the biggest problems from IFC's perspective we're facing in the world's financial sector today is the de-risking of smaller banks and entire countries that are smaller markets from the world's correspondent banking system. This is directly related to the compliance costs situation you talked about and the fact that this system all comes down to about a dozen big banks in Europe and North America that are the main correspondents. These are the sort of banks that routinely used to hire Promontory on their compliance side, and they hire IBM's financial services specialists on their IT side. Now that you've merged the two and you're implying, why are we still seeing banks cut off? What more has to happen? Because from a purely technical point of view, between Watson and Promontory, you should have sorted this out already. Why is the problem still getting worse?
That's going to be a very well-known response, but we are at the beginning of our journey, and we bought Promontory just last year. I take your question also in the perspective of whether this will be an eligible service for the big banks only. For instance, that's another side of the story. We are joining our forces with these well-established institutions in the world to train AI in the best quality way possible. But what we are trying is we are also trying to democratize these services for the smaller banks, or if you talk about other sectors, for instance, for less developed nations, for less developed systems, because the services will be available in a more wider and a cheaper way, we believe. It takes time. What we've done with Promontory is actually training a machine on understanding of English, and not as English as spoken in daily lives, but in terms of the legal context, in terms of the regulatory context. We began to see the results, but as more feedback will be fed into this system, as more we see the better insights are derived, then it will go faster. What we see is the language training, for instance. We started with 9 months. The first language, the first natural language processed, understood by AI took 9 months. Now we see durations like 3 months. It's getting faster, but it takes time. So that's my response.
Good, thank you very much.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Dusan.
Simge, I'm going to buy your regulatory report for the future of regulation with ICOs immediately. Just tell me how much it is and I'll pay you straight on. So joke aside, what I am interested, a more serious question. I'm interested, you gave your own example from your own organization. I would be interested from IBM and Microsoft, how do you use AI within your organizations? If you have an example, I would be curious.
Okay. Yes, that's a very fair question. For instance, in IBM, we use interaction component of AI very widely. Anything that we try to solve on our systems, it may be related to my education, it may be related to my next role, my career, my payment, whatever. We are interacting with Watson. So we are, it's chatbot, but it's also, if I decide to use English, it can be also over voice. But we converse with Watson up to a point, and where if we are still not satisfied, only then a human agent is assigned to our request. That's one example of how we use AI internally. But what we are doing is also, as I talked about, cybersecurity is a big domain for us for AI usage. All the security precautions IBM takes internally, all the problems IBM faces among the employees are fed into this knowledge base for our cybersecurity AI training models. So we also collect insights from how the employees in IBM work from a security perspective to train our models that's going to be commercialized for other companies.
Thank you. And then we have one last question.
Maybe I can add one more
Make a quick one, okay.
point of view from Microsoft. So two ways. One, we turn our productivity tools like Office, OneNote, etc. into more cognitive-based applications. So one way that I've just used it today is actually, I'm going to have a presentation tomorrow about mixed reality. So I embedded a couple of pictures to my PowerPoint presentation, and as I embedded those pictures, PowerPoint provided some recommendations as to how I should design the page. So that ability to design the page in a different way is PowerPoint's capability within Office 365 to recommend different styles of embedding pictures. So that's one way. The second way is within Microsoft, so I'm going to add one more thing about OneNote. So in OneNote, we added a new capability of converting maths applications into handwritten maths applications or maths equations into text, and then providing answers to that. So the idea is to be able to turn classrooms into more intelligent classrooms and students' OneNote applications into more intelligent applications. The way we used machine learning in an interesting way at Microsoft was target setting at the beginning of this year. So every individual employee at Microsoft that is responsible for sales is traditionally given a quota at the beginning of the year. Until this year, this quota setting process was done by humans. This year, the quota setting process was done by machines, corrected in very, very minuscule amounts by humans, but the whole process was done by machines. So this is probably one of the best ways that AI and machine learning can be used in the company.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing to add? No. Okay. We're short of time, so if you have nothing to add, we'll just take the last question. Yes, the gentleman there. Can we get a microphone? Oh, you have one. Good. Okay.
That's good.
I want to know the world consider any right for artificial intelligence. For example, we know today Sophia as a robot, and that space is artificial intelligence. The world or the big institution and big company, for example, Microsoft, did any right for them? For example, I don't know, you know Sophia or not? Sophia is a robot that it's the same of human and can do everything based on the artificial intelligence. But that's the main today's question is that if Sophia come out from home and have an accident, what is that right? Because it has this, it's the same of the human and can do everything the human can do that. I want to know, do you have any concept or any right for them or not?
Right, just very quick answers, please.
So I guess the answer all boils down to AI-based human aids. So like things like Siri, things like Cortana, things like Google Now, are now able to speak and not go beyond speaking, but they also provide some insight as to your daily capabilities and daily habits. So you actually need to leave now because the traffic is like 45 minutes for your next meeting. So that kind of a warning is what the AI devices and capabilities are now able to provide. Once it goes a little bit above that, once it goes actually towards interfering with your daily life in a much more coherent manner, then I think it's going to become a little bit more difficult as to who you're going to find and who you're going to punish in cases of legal responsibility. I think this is not clear yet.
I think a very good note to end on. Are we all going to end up in the courts? And will the court be being operated by machines? Who knows? Thank you very much. Fascinating session, and I appreciate your contribution.